Nimitz Highway after midnight is the kind of dark that feels domestic. Fluorescent wash from the warehouse doors, sodium haze from the airport viaducts, the steady white noise of planes that don't care what's happening under their bellies. I got off the bus one stop early because the driver said his route was short-turning and I didn't want to be the girl who complains about walking. The air was thick with jet fuel and rain that couldn't make up its mind. On the chain-link fence, someone's lei had browned into a wreath for nobody. I'd done this walk before, past the shuttered UU-style plate lunch spot with the laminated menu still glowing, skirt the auto body lots with their guard dogs who bark like it's a hobby, cut behind the storage units to the alley that coughs up my street. It's not a good walk. It's just the one I had. There was a car idling 2 storefronts down from the bus stop. Not new, not old. One of those practical coupes rental fleets sell after 3 summers of sand. The headlights were off. The parking lights wore a faint orange like a cigarette trying to quit. When I stepped down, the door clicked open, and a man leaned out not far, just enough to pick up my attention like a dropped coin. "You all right?" he said, voice calm, non-local, or I couldn't place it in the wind. "Bus driver bailed early?" "They do that," I said. I tried for breezy and landed on apologetic. "I'm good." "You headed Mauka or town?" he asked. Back of the throat friendly, nothing in it that set off alarms except the fact that there was nothing in it. He wore a long sleeve even though it was August hot, cuffs neat, collar lying flat like a dog in training. His hands were on the wheel at 10 and 2 as if he wanted me to notice he had them where they belonged. "Mauka," I lied, and pointed the wrong way. I never learned to lie with my hands. They told on me by aiming toward the alley. "Hop in," he said. Easy, like he was offering a shopping cart to someone who only needed 2 things. "I'll take you to the corner with the blue mailbox. You can outrun the rain." "I'm good," I said again, because that phrase is a raincoat. Thin, bright, and not to be trusted in a real storm. He leaned his head toward the empty passenger seat, giving it a little look like hosts do when they realize the good chair is still open. "I got a kid sister," he said. "I don't like thinking of her walking this stretch alone. You sure?" I should have said no and walked into the wrong air with my head high. I should have done 1,000 things people like to list after the story is finished. What I did was what I had trained my entire life to do. Be polite for 5 more seconds, then reward politeness. I looked toward the alley, dark, damp, loud with refrigeration compressors, and then I looked at the car with its clean seats and its promise of being looked after for 3 minutes by someone else. "Just the mailbox," I said. "If you go past it, I'll bail." "Deal," he said, quick and cheerful like we'd managed a compromise. He didn't get out to open the door. I respected him for not making it weird. I got in and pulled the door myself. The interior smelled like new carpet and lemon. The kind of car that gets vacuumed after errands because the owner believes crumbs are how chaos sneaks in. "Seat belt," he said, not unkind. He clicked his own at the same time as mine, a duet of well-adjusted. The radio was low, an AM station talking about a tropical depression with the bored urgency of people who've already found the flashlights. We rolled. The rain started, honest now, fat drops that tick in the first minute like a warning and then become a continuous skin. He kept to the left under the overpass, where the road goes ribbed and the sound changes to a hollow drum. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Work," I said. I gave him the version people at bus stops get. Restaurant, closing shift. Sorry about the fries smell. No, we don't do breakfast. He nodded like he had a chart in his head and I just ticked a box. He didn't say his name. He didn't ask mine. He didn't comment on the leaves shriveling on the fences. He drove with that small smile men wear when they are pleased with how ordinary everything is. "Blue mailbox," I said when we approached the corner where the road turns into my life. He slowed dutifully. The wipers clapped in relief. He signaled because he liked demonstrating that he respected the performance of rules. "Where you want me to pull?" he asked, eyes on the wetness. "Just here," I said and pointed. He eased to the curb. The car, grateful, stopped. That's when he did the first unusual thing. He turned off the headlights but left the engine running. I put my hand on the door handle. He said conversational, "You're welcome," and the way he said it was a closed door. Thank you, I said, because the thank you is a kind of passport you hand over in this country to prove you belong. He nodded, accepting the document. I'm going to idle a minute, he said, almost embarrassed. You know how it is, just thinking about tomorrow. You mind keeping me company so I don't look like a creep sitting alone? My hand was already on the handle. I took it off because of the little school in my head where teachers tug the wrist down and say, "We don't hurt feelings here." I leaned back. The rain slicked the windshield into that syrupy film you only get near ocean air and heat. We sat. It was fine, until it wasn't. He reached to the center console and took out a cloth to wipe his hands. The cloth was clean. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. It felt like a ceremony. You live nearby, he said, not a question. Everyone lives nearby on Oahu, I said, light, my joke walking out ahead of me to see if the road was hospitable. He smiled like I had passed a test on being a person. His eyes did not smile with him. They stayed on the middle distance like he was hearing a cue I didn't. He touched a dial on the radio and the tropical depression got quieter. The car felt like it had closed its eyes. You shouldn't get out yet, he said, soft. It's raining harder. It's fine, I said. My fingers returned to the handle on their own, independent agents. He saw the intent. The body tells on itself, and he lifted his right hand, palm open, blessing the air between us like a priest. Hold up, he said. You forgot something. I didn't bring anything, I said, and then caught myself. Girls who survive don't argue about unimportant details in tones that change men's minds. Your name, he said. The hand stayed in the space between us, not touching me, heavy to look at. You forgot to tell me your name so I can worry about you later when I drive past and see you didn't get home. I wanted to invent one. I wanted to say a name with edges and watch it protect me. I wanted to make it hard for him to remember me when he told this story to whatever part of himself takes minutes and writes them down. I opened my mouth and my real name came out because the body is a traitor when it thinks being gracious is oxygen. He repeated it, pleased. He tried it on his mouth. It fit. Okay, he said, okay. The cloth went back into the console. His right hand did not. It stayed above the space where my knees were, hovering, as if I might pass him something fragile. He didn't reach. He didn't look, but the space in the car changed shape like a lung being instructed to hold. Why me? I heard myself ask, and surprised us both. It should have been a joke. It arrived wound in wire. Why stop for me? He tilted his head. He thought or pretended to. Then he did something that taught me the rhythm of him forever. He told a truth wrapped in cheap gift paper. You looked like a person who thinks of other people first, he said. It's a disease and a cure. I didn't move. And you? I'm a person who notices, he said simply. That's my trick. His hand dropped finally to the console. He clicked something that sounded like a latch. The sound was small as letter openers. The passenger door locks thunked into sincerity. I pulled my handle on reflex. It lifted politely and did nothing. Don't, he said quietly, and the quiet was the most dangerous part. We're staying a minute. What for? Because I asked, he said, and because you're the kind who honors asks. I tried a voice that wasn't mine. Let me out, I said, and it came out as a suggestion, weak hospitality offered to someone who doesn't drink. He looked at my hands. I had folded them into my lap without permission. He approved. Fingers, he said, conversational, like he'd noticed a ring and wanted the story. Bring your fingers to me for a second. No, I said. I did it anyway, a reflex I will never forgive the air for teaching me. He took my wrists gently like he was checking for fever. His fingers were cool and careful. The lemon smell had a second note now, plastic that's been bagged for too long. Turn, he said, and rotated my wrists a quarter inch as if to admire them. He didn't bind them. He didn't have to, not yet. He was trying a glove on a fact. I can scream, I said. You can, he agreed. Let's find out if it matters. I breathed. I find that sentence embarrassing in memory because it's so small and so heroic at the same time. I breathed and counted the way you count when nurses tell you bad news. 4 in, 6 out, like blowing out a candle you wish would go. He watched my mouth move with my lungs. He found a rhythm that matched. He smiled as if we had discovered we share a favorite song. You know Keehi Lagoon? He asked, too casually. My stomach answered before my mouth. My stomach is ruder and wiser than me. I nodded because the body will sometimes confess if it thinks it will live longer that way. We'll take the long way, he said. Not yet, later. So I can think. I want to go home, I said. I'll take you home, he said, and gave the promise that is not a promise but knows how to dress like one. He lifted one hand from my wrist, fished in the console, and came up with what I've since learned men call a cuff, but I call a loop. A soft, flat band of plastic with a mouth waiting to ratchet. A zip tie, but nicer. Tan, not white. New. He looked at it thoughtfully as if wondering whether it went with the outfit. You don't need that, I said. The politeness made it worse, like putting a bow on a weapon. Probably not, he said. We'll see. He slid the loop over my right wrist like a bracelet. It didn't bite. It just existed like a rule. He left the tail loose, resting on the console. A leash for air. This is nothing, he said. You can take it off yourself later with scissors. Think of it as you doing me a favor. I like the theater of things. Do you do this a lot? I asked, which was me pretending to look at him while looking at the door, the window, the reflection of rain on the glass. He smiled like a man flattered by an accusation. I do noticing a lot, he said. Hold the loop for me, I'm going to drive. I did what he told me because he said it like a teacher and because my body is a classroom. He put the car in gear. The rain made the world as soft-edged as old photographs, and I had the electric, nauseous thought that I was about to become something people talk about when they want to feel awake. We pulled away from the blue mailbox. He took a right when straight would have been mercy. The road toward the water is a road that thinks it's a memory. The lagoon in rain looks like a sheet being shaken out by someone tired. You can end this, I said, and heard it. That core of me not bargaining, not pleading, just stating a math problem. You can end this with me getting out of the car at the next light and never telling anybody. That's a way to be a person. He considered gently. You think I'm starting anything, he asked. Maybe this is just who we are on our best nights. I don't want to be in your grammar. You're already in it, he said. We are, you and I, quiet. We like clean. We like rules. You obey them. I write them. That's a marriage. You don't know me, I said. I know enough, he said, and put on the blinker like that proved he understood the choreography of belonging. There's a thing fear does that none of the pamphlets tell you. It makes you extremely kind. You will hold a stranger's loop for them. You will ask after their day. You will say please. You will give them your name. You will help them keep you alive long enough to decide whether to do it themselves. I decided to be impolite. It's the first survival skill I ever learned that felt like a sin. When we passed a stretch where the H1 rises and the world has to do what the freeway wants, the shoulder offered a small triangle of gravel and weeds and trash bags that blow of their own accord. He moved toward it to avoid a truck that came over without looking, and the car shivered at the lip of the triangle, just enough to make the loop tail slide off the console and onto the floor. He reached down with his right hand to grab it back. It took 1 second. He looked away from me to where his neatness had fallen. I went for the lock. The modern lock is a little rocker by your left thumb. The sound it makes when it releases is small, a plastic sigh. It sounded like a choir. He moved fast, faster than the rain, faster than my good ideas. He caught my wrist, squeezed just once, a warning, not a punishment. His mouth did not say don't, his eyes did. He brought his left hand off the wheel and put the car back where the road wanted us. His right hand found the loop tail again. He kept driving. You're going to make me work, he said, not angry, something almost like pride in it, like I'd proven I deserved extra attention. I took the loop with 2 fingers and tightened it 1 millimeter on my wrist, pretending I was helping him. It burned. He liked the obedient gesture so much he didn't watch what my other hand did. It went for the window. Modern windows obey quickly if you ask before the driver thinks to forbid. I pressed and the glass dropped 1 inch, then 2, then blessed 3. Rain leapt in like a dog. He made a soft, irritated sound and reached over to tap the lockout with his thumb while keeping the car straight. You can't close a window and correct a vehicle while a truck is christening you. He chose the truck. A second was born. I shoved 2 fingers, my free hand, through the gap and let the rain soak my arm. Then I screamed into the crack, not full throat, not movie, just a constant animal sound at a pitch made to insult and reach. He hit the lockout, the window stuttered and rose. My fingers came back wet and cold and happier than anything. He didn't hit me. He didn't curse. He rolled his shoulders like he was resetting an idea. "We'll stop," he said, as if deciding on dessert. "You'll calm down. You're making this messy." "You said you like clean," I said. My voice had become a tool. "Let me out and you get to stay who you think you are." He merged. The lagoon held its breath like it didn't care. He signaled left, then right, then left, unnerved for the first time, or pretending an imitation of it to lull me into a version of him. Then he did what men like him do when rain and women and geography conspire to make them late. He chose a smaller road. The smaller road is where the city lets its mistakes rest: old pylons, a broken speed limit sign, the occasional sleeping truck with a tarp over its cargo like modesty over a corpse. He pulled into a pocket where two iron bollards made a mouth into a gravel lot. The water heaved beside us. The algae made a thin soup the color of someone mispronouncing green. He parked. He turned off the engine. He left the parking lights on, orange and disinterested. In the silence, the rain sounded like a million small decisions being finalized. "Turn," he said. "Hands behind." "No," I said. The word arrived large and took up the whole car. "Turn," he repeated, and his voice grew a new layer: impatience, thin but functional. I turned, but only halfway, so he had to lean. He had to reach across me again. He had to put his wrist in a joint panel of his own making. I let him. I kept my left hand under my thigh, the wrist loop tight on my right, my shoulder protesting at the angle. He brought the second loop up, the twin, the pair the package came with. He would connect them in the middle behind my back, a small plastic handshake I would live to hate. "You good?" he asked softly, as if to a child who just needs to be told she is still part of the family. "Look at me," I said. He did. The rain made little galaxies in his eyes. His mouth did a tiny sorrow, as if he regretted being the person he is. He smiled to iron that away. I lifted my chin, offered my throat as if I were asking him to admire, not the throat, but the human idea. "You can't unread this part of you," I said. "You keep me. You keep this version of you forever. You let me out. You can go back to the one who notices and keeps driving." He didn't answer. He doesn't keep the parts of the conversation that don't serve the result. He fitted the second loop around my left wrist. The plastic kissed itself in that cheap, satisfying way things do when they were designed to be one way. "Please," I said, and I hate that I said it. I hated it even as it worked. He exhaled. The rain changed shape. Somewhere a plane lifted in the dark with everyone's stories tucked under their seats. He shook his head, not at me, at the whole economy of the night. He pulled the tails. The loops tightened. My hands became a single problem behind me. "Please what?" he asked, not mocking. Honest curiosity about the unit price of mercy. "Please let me keep my face," I said. "Leave me where I can be found while I'm still alive enough to be worth the trouble." He closed his eyes for a second and opened them clean. "You read a lot," he observed. "Enough to know which sentences get you in trouble," I said. He reached for the lights. He turned them off. The car became a small, containable cave. The sound of rain on the roof sedated the part of me that believes in patterns. I saw our reflection in the window as movement. My shadow with two hands married at the back, his turned toward me like a question, the lagoon breathing old secrets. In the dark, he told me something. "I don't think about them after," he said. "I refuse to be the kind of man who keeps souvenirs. But there is always a before, and I like the before very much." "You're making a before out of me," I said. He tilted his head to concede the point. "Turn," he said again, softer. "Please," he added, a parody of politeness or a real attempt to speak my language. I turned fully, enough to give him what he wanted: position, access, confidence. I also pulled my knees up so the plastic between my wrists and the center console brushed for a second. Plastic against plastic makes a noise you can hear with your fingers. The tails hung loose still, untrimmed, like a dress unhemmed. I tucked the longer under my waistband without him seeing, pinning it against my spine with my elbow, which meant that when he dragged me closer with the loops, he also dragged himself closer, and his shoulder hit the horn. The sound was small and sick and human and sudden. Not a blast, more of a misfire, a complaint from the car's diaphragm. In a dead place, any sound is an event. A security light over the storage units blinked alive in the middle distance, doing its job late and proud. He froze, and in freezing, he drew breath. If this night has a single picture, it's that. His face in the not-quite light, the security lamp arguing with itself, the lagoon wrinkling, and me using the smallest, strangest luck to make a path where one had not existed. "Shh," he said, as if the horn were a baby and I had made it cry. "Someone will come," I lied. "I know this place," he said, and the certainty preceded him like a weather front. "You don't know me," I said again, and braced my feet on the dash before he could tell me to be a good girl. He tried to yank me back by the loops. My pinned elbow kept them from giving him the posture he wanted. The plastic bit. Pain was a shape I could use. I kicked. Women in safety classes practice a knee. Life teaches a different geometry. I didn't connect with ribs or throat or anything cinematic. I hit his forearm and jarred the loop. He lost his grip for a quarter second, the quarter that matters. I rolled toward the door, dragging the loops with me, turning them from handcuffs into reins. The door doesn't open without the lock acknowledging the idea. He saw me see that. He went for the lock. I went for the horn again. This time I hit it properly. A long, nasal bleat that had the word emergency dyeing the air. A second security light exhaled. Somewhere in the back lot, a dog began its sermon. It was enough. He grabbed for my jaw with one hand and my shoulder with the other. It wasn't brutal, it was efficient. The hands of a bedtime story told badly. "Shh," he said again, louder, and when that didn't work, he did something that might have saved my life. He looked out the window. He looked out and away. He checked the world for witnesses. I checked the world for edges. There is a handle above the passenger door, the kind built for grandmothers in bad turns. I hooked my bound wrists on it and shoved with my knees. Gravity and a manufacturer's sense of liability joined forces. The plastic loop tails slid, a new angle, an abused ratchet, the kind of failure engineered into single-use ethics. One tooth gave. I made a sound that wasn't a scream. Surprise, joy, greed. He recognized it. He lunged. I slid. Half free, that's all a body needs. I got the passenger window down 2 inches before his hand found my hair, and in the moment he thought he had me, he put his weight onto the wrong part of me, my shoulder, not my throat. There's such luck in the anatomy of strangers. I twisted. I made myself ugly. I let the seatbelt cut my collarbone. I let the rain finish the job the horn started. The window went down enough for my forearm to become a wedge. He knew the math. He shifted his hand to my mouth. I bit him. He made that surprised, betrayed sound tidy men make when their world isn't the one they curated. He pulled back. I shoved my face into the rain. "Help," I said, and it sounded like a bird under a tire, but it was the best thing I have ever said. "Help! Help! Help!" The lot is not empty at 2 a.m. in Honolulu. Somewhere a man smokes to keep his night honest. Somewhere a woman counts tills again because the first number felt like a lie. Somewhere a security guard hates his chair enough to patrol, just once. Someone's flashlight turned. A voice said the thing you only hear when you've earned it. You good?" He froze on me. He didn't turn to face the voice. He made a calculation that I felt travel through him. Release me, drive me, fight me, kill me, run. The voice came again, closer now, with a little swagger in it, the swagger of men who have enough on their belt to try to be brave even when they shouldn't. What you doing?" My mouth found itself. "Help," I said again, huge this time, and it rolled over the lagoon and the rain and the island and back into me so I could hear it and believe it. He chose. He let go. Not me. The rest. He let go of me as a project. He pushed me hard enough that I spilled against the dash, and then he pulled me back. Paradoxical, that moment, push-pull, and in pulling he pulled the loop tails completely free of my waistband. The cuffs became 1 loop and then 2 pieces of plastic. He cursed once, cleanly, like a man who doesn't like having to start a sentence over. He jammed the key, he turned, he brought the engine back up. The lights flashed back to orange. He put the car in drive. The guard, or whoever that kind soul was jogging now, a beam of light making noise between us. I did the only smart thing left. I threw my bound wrists across his face. He knocked them away. I did it again. He swatted a 3rd time and the loop snagged his ear. The pain made him turn his head enough to be not driving while he was driving. The car jerked. A pylon stub scraped the bumper. He swore again, louder this time. He looked past me one last time, out, away, beyond, and in that look I saw my face in his iris. I don't know what he saw in mine. Whatever it was made him decide this one wasn't worth the tidy-up charge. He spun the wheel, nose toward the mouth of the lot, and the car leapt, and the guard shouted again, and I did not see which way he went because I was already spilling out the passenger door, which gives if you treat it like a person and not a machine. I landed on gravel, and my knees registered all the tiny shapes this island makes to build itself. The rain kissed every new cut like a mother who doesn't know where to kiss first. The guard's flashlight turned me into a creature. He was already talking into his radio, the words turning into other men. "Hands," he said, because it's the first thing people say when they have to talk a body back into itself. I showed him mine, loop marks proud and stupid. He made a noise that had anger in it. His job would iron out later. He put me behind his truck. We watched the exit. We saw taillights smear and vanish into the ordinary city. The rain settled into the rhythm that means it will last till morning. I sat on the bumper and shook like I was trying to move out of my own body. He kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying yes because that is my favorite lie, and sometimes you have to let it try to be true. He didn't ask for my name until I offered it. He said his. I have it written down, and I send him royal blue mango bread every Christmas like a superstition. He laughed when I did it the first year and said I should not make a habit of thanking men for doing what they should do anyway. I do not care. I am superstitious. When the patrol car came, the officer looked at my hands first and then my eyes. He asked if I could talk. I could, just enough. "Car color?" he asked. "Gray," I said. "Rental looking. Clean." "Make?" he asked. "Generic," I said, apologizing with my voice. "Plate?" he asked. "Rain," I said, and lifted my face to make the point. "Where he say he taking you?" the guard asked. "Keehi Lagoon," I said, and the way their bodies reacted, just their shoulders, just a breath, told me this story didn't start with me. They drove me to a lobby with good air conditioning and bad chairs and gave me tea like I had earned adulthood. I told them the words that would become the report my sister would never be allowed to read. I said the sentences that try to be all of it and become only a part. I watched a detective's face when I said loop and lagoon and blue mailbox and saw how his jaw made a decision. "Okay," he said. "Okay." Was it him? I asked, hating that the pronoun sat in the room like a third man. He didn't answer the way I wanted. He said, "You're going to give me what you can, and then we're going to do what we can. And if you need the definition of adulthood, that is it. The hours after you don't die are ugly and practical. People say good job like you just finished moving a couch. The receptionist finds a small towel because the air conditioning is making your wet hair into a shiver. A young cop learns how to make tea for the first time at work and decides sugar is a bandage. You sit with your hands palm up because they hurt less that way. A woman detective with a calm voice and a big braid took my statement in pieces, a story as stones, the room a river. "We can stop whenever," she said. "We can start again later. It doesn't have to be perfect." I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to give them something that didn't make their faces do that thing faces do when they realize the night isn't done with them. "He said he notices," I told her, and she wrote noticer like it was a profession. "He used your name?" she asked. "After he asked for it," I said, and my stomach told the truth, my mouth didn't. I had given it freely, and I would have to make peace with that for as long as I wanted to remain a person. "Hands?" she asked softly. "Loops," I said. I drew them, a line art of fear. "Soft zip ties, not white, beige, new." "Smell?" she asked. "Lemon, carpet, plastic that's been wrapped too tight." She nodded like I'd given her a diagram of a house she'd suspected existed. "You did good," she said, and then because she was kind, "You did enough." They asked if I wanted a ride to the ER. I said no, because the part of me that says I don't want to be a bother is a parasite with tenure. They asked if I wanted to call anyone. I said my sister and then didn't, because she has a baby who learns what verbs mean by watching her face. They gave me a card. I carried it home like people carry good luck coins and bad luck rings. The next day, Honolulu smelled like a wet dog and a hungover lemon. Work put me on dishes because they didn't want customers to see my wrists. I took out the trash and watched the sky try to be blue through its own humidity. A man with a kind mouth ordered lau lau and asked if we had chili pepper water on the side. I said yes, because the world sometimes keeps its promises. They called that afternoon. "We have a lineup," the calm detective said. "Not ID, context. You might see nobody. You might see an idea." I went. I saw the idea of him in 3 different faces, 2 different noses, the same mouth. I did not circle anyone. I wrote clean and calm and loop and underlined Keehi so many times the paper started to resent me. "You heard anything?" I asked, trying to make my voice a casual umbrella over my shaking. "We're clearing possibilities," she said. "We're sending some cars past every chain link fence that thinks it's a secret. We're talking to security guards who hate their chairs." "Was it him?" I said again, uselessly, like a child who doesn't mind repeating herself if the candy will appear. "It could have been," she said, and not all the honesty in the world can make that sentence into comfort. That night I slept stupid and woke with the rain still trying to be a roof. The news did what news does, turned panic into paragraphs, located the fear by a map people used to buy. A radio caller used the word copycat like hope. Another used task force like a family's name. One woman said Keehi Lagoon like a curse. I turned it off because my kitchen is for tea and mango and my sister's baby's squeals, not for strangers' vocabulary. At work, I watched women count cash with elbows in, sliding their bodies small as if that made them invisible. I watched men hold their keys like they had discovered a new martial art. I watched a security guard read a paperback like it was his job description. The island walked itself differently. Doors that used to stay propped were shut. Eyes that used to be soft were correct. The detective called me 2 days later. "I want to show you a map," she said, "for context." We looked at a Honolulu that had been annotated by rain and worse. A red marker looped Keehi like a patient encircled by a doctor who wants to perform a surgery the family can't afford. There were other loops, Moanalua, Halawa, overpasses and underpasses, the places where the highway decides who counts and who doesn't. "We're not putting this on the news yet," she said, looking at me and then at the map like she was negotiating with both our futures. "But there are patterns, bus stops, work clothes, after midnight, hands." "Loops," I said. She nodded. "You can imagine my mood about loops." "Did he say anything?" I asked, hating that I made the detective do my rumors for me. "About after?" "He doesn't talk about after," she said. "He talks about before." I remembered his face when the horn bleated, when the flashlight turned, when I said please and meant not yet. "He likes tidy," I said. "Tidy men cost me weekends," she said, but she said it like a prayer, not a complaint. A day later, they asked me if I'd be willing to drive with a patrol to the spot. I asked if I had to. They said no. I said yes because I wanted to get older faster. We went at sunset, because cops like to make the world look like a movie just long enough to remember why they got into this in the first place. The lagoon was pretending to be pretty. The plane buzz carved the water into pieces that took too long to knit back together. The gravel mouth had fresh tire paths, but that could be anyone. Places like this are magnets for mistakes. "Here?" the officer asked. I pointed, the pylon stump, the bollards, the speed limit sign with the 5 missing and only a 2 left, like the city had made a terrible bargain. I stood where the passenger door would have been and put my body in that geometry again. I did with my hands what I'd done, loop tails under the waistband, elbow pin, the horn by accident, the window by intention. The officer watched and nodded like choreography is a kind of confession. "You kept your head," he said. "I made a mess," I said, which is close to the same thing. He looked at the water and didn't say anything for a minute. "You know what the tide did last week?" he asked eventually. "I don't look up tide tables," I said. He smiled without teeth. "Sometimes I wish nobody did," he said, and that's how I learned, sideways, like a kid eavesdropping. There had been a body, or more than one, or a fear of one, or a memory of one. The detective would tell me later, respectfully, what everyone already knew. How 5 names had become a rumor, how their ages slid around in a range that should not belong in a single sentence, how a task force had been created and disbanded and recreated because the island deserved the performance of justice even when justice resisted. Back at the station, the detective asked me for anything new, even if it felt unimportant. I said he didn't smell like sweat. He smelled like he showered just for this. She wrote, "Prepared." And he said he had a sister, I added, remembering the way he borrowed intimacy to make me volunteer mine. Or he said he worries like a brother. She wrote, borrowed family. Then she looked at the map again, and her mouth did a thing I've started to recognize. Brave men flex their fists, brave women flex their sentences. From then on, I lived like the island was auditioning me for a role I didn't want. I vary my route. I call my sister and let the baby scream her joy into my ear until my heart remembers what noise is for. I carry a hotel room key that doesn't work for anywhere anymore and keep it between my fingers when I'm alone because the body believes in talismans even when the brain laughs. The voice on the radio said task force again. It said profile. It said FBI with reverence. It said not stalker and opportunistic and organized like a man reading the weather. It said unidentified. And in the middle of all that vocabulary, I felt a kind of sour relief. How do you grieve an unknown without giving him the gift of a name? How do you fight a ghost without making him a celebrity? People came into the restaurant and left without remembering to take their check because they'd been busy watching the door. Men became hoverers. Women became pairs. Teenagers learned the sentence "text me when you get home" like a liturgy. Aunties looked at the sky and judged it as if the climate had voted. The island shifted its weight from one hip to the other and waited. I didn't sleep well. When I did, I dreamed of that horn, the small, insulting sound that lives in the part of the night nobody wants. I woke up to my own palm pressed to my throat like I'd been holding it in. The loop marks faded to a yellow catechism on my skin. I took pictures in the bathroom mirror because I didn't trust my future self to believe my past. They called when there was a lead. They called when there wasn't. They called when a tip came in from a man who thought he saw a car that looked like the world. They called when a woman told them a story from another bus stop that sounded so much like mine, I had to sit down and put my face in my shirt. "Do you want to meet her?" the detective asked, careful. "No," I said, because whatever we would say to each other would be a fire, and I am still flammable. She understood. She told me anyway. The woman had kept her bag on her lap like a child. When he reached for it in that friendly way, she did not let it go. He did the math and released the night back to her. It is amazing how often we survive because men have other appointments. Weeks turned the air. The rain learned to arrive without apology. The lagoon returned to its favorite hobby, pretending to be innocent. I practiced saying no like a language class. I got better at living. You want a parade for surviving. What you get is errands. The world requires groceries, regardless of whether your wrists burned last week. I went to the small Safeway with the thinking air conditioner and stood too long in front of the green onions because they're cheap and bright and make everything taste like a decision. In line, a man with a basket full of nothing but beer glanced at my hands and then away so politely you would have missed it if you hadn't been me. "Long day," he said to the checker. "Longest," she said, and her voice made it true. When I walked out, my phone rang. The detective. "We're not telling you this to make you not sleep," she said. "But you should know. There was a woman at Moanalua last night. She didn't make it." She said the next sentence in a way that made me want to put both hands on the wall. "We think it's the same man." I didn't cry. Crying is a social act. I made a noise that made the man with beer look up and then down and then at the ground like it owed him. "I'm sorry," I said, "because that is what you say to the police when they tell you there is still a world you don't control." "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "No," I said. "I want to go home." We have a noise on this island when we want to make each other feel statehood through pain. An anti-tsk that means I told you the ocean doesn't love you, and a breath through the teeth that means we are very small. The city made those noises for a month. The news learned how to say ligature without making people change the channel. The mayor said we will and we must and we refuse, and for the daughters. Strangers held doors with the seriousness of surgeons. I threw away the shoes I wore that night because they wouldn't stop telling me the story out loud. I bought a pair that could outrun anything, and then wore them only in the kitchen, because running is an emergency and I do not wish to live in one. I stopped taking the bus after 11 unless the driver gave me that look that says my niece is your niece. I kept 3 cab company numbers folded in my wallet until the ink bled like a truth. They asked if I was willing to tell my story, carefully, for a bulletin. I said yes and then wrote it the way you do when you want to build a door for someone you'll never meet. He is friendly. He is tidy. He will ask for your name and hold it gently while he makes it something else. He smells like lemon. He likes the vocabulary of before. If you are a person whose first language is yes, consider the grammar of no. The detective cut half my adjectives and patted the rest with civility, because the city can only digest so much of a girl's voice before it decides she's eating too loudly. Then, because stories like to give you a reason to believe in narrative even when they shouldn't, there was a man. Not my man. A man. The newspapers used suspect like a new pair of shoes, stiff at first, then comfortable, then smelly with usage. They said he was seen with one of the women. They said his wife said he came home late with strange stains. They said he had a temper that masqueraded as rules. They said a task force took his house apart like language. They said he was taken in and then let go and then circled again, and then the circle broke. The detective called me gentle in case I saw headlines out of order. "We're working," she said. "We may not get to the postcard ending. There might not be a last chapter that lets you close the book." "You think he reads about himself?" I asked. "Men like this," she said, "can't help it. They need to see if the world knows their grammar." "Then tell him," I said, throat suddenly dry, "that he is boring. Tell him that he is a copy of a copy of a copy and girls still saved themselves before he showed up." She laughed once, the way women do when they want to kiss your forehead and stab the ocean. "I'll pass it along," she said. When it was quiet, it was very quiet. When it wasn't, the helicopter did circles like it had lost its keys. I went to work and watched tourists order pineapple and poi like they wanted to be absolved. I wore long sleeves until my wrist stories became museum pieces. And then one day, because time does this, we all pretended it was over. The rain had someplace else to be. The lagoon looked like a glass that had been wiped and put away. The radio stopped using task force and went back to traffic and UH football and rainbow and small craft advisory. My sister asked if I wanted to take the baby to Ala Moana, and we did, because you can't live inside a case file forever. Sometimes when I drive Nimitz now, I feel the old ghost try to put his hand on my shoulder. He's very polite about it. He says hold up in a voice that almost gets me to say yes. I tell him no and roll the window down 2 inches even if it's raining just to let the air out. It smells like jet fuel and mango peels and life. I still ride buses. I still get off one stop early sometimes when I want to feel competent. I still say I'm good out of reflex when men offer to walk me. And sometimes I make myself say no thank you instead and watch their faces learn something they should have known. People ask me what I remember most. It's never the big thing. It's the small sound of the horn. It's the way the loop slid, that tiny plastic gasp when an object discovers it can be a tool for bad or good, depending on the angle. It's the security guards, like a prayer and a joke at the same time. It's the rain that didn't stop the night and didn't save me. It just got in everybody's hair equally because Hawaii is fair that way. If I see him again, I won't know. That's the problem with tidy men. They buy new cars, they change shirts, they practice saying you good in new mouths. They let time do their camouflage. But here's the other thing I hold like a lie that doesn't brown. If he sees me again, he will not know me either. The version he met is extinct. Whoever he taught me to be replaced her. I'd like to say I forgive the island for letting him exist. That's a big sentence I don't own yet. What I do have is the practice of leaving myself in places where people can find me, texting my sister, telling the hostess when I get in, learning the name of the night guard, tipping the driver so he remembers my face. You become a person with breadcrumbs, and you hope the birds are full tonight. When I walk past the storage units where the security light takes too long to wake up, I look at the chain link and the brown lay and the way the wind grabs at the plastic flags, and I say no quietly to everything. Not a magic word, a policy. The first policy I ever wrote for my own body. How am I doing now? Well, I keep a pair of scissors in the glove box, call my sister when I'm 2 blocks out, and I don't let anyone say my name from a car without me charging them rent. Killer reveal. The Honolulu Strangler, a.k.a. the Honolulu Rapist, unidentified. The The Honolulu Strangler is the nickname for an unidentified serial killer believed to have murdered 5 women on Oahu between May 1985 and April 1986. Victims were found near corridors including Keehi Lagoon and Moanalua, most with hands bound behind their backs and evidence of strangulation. A task force canvassed bus stops and industrial areas along H1 Nimitz, and a suspect was detained then released. No one has been charged. The case, Hawaii's first widely recognized serial killer investigation, remains unsolved.